What's good, y'all? I trust you had a great Memorial Day weekend. This week is going to be a bit of an abbreviated show because of the weekend. We are going to talk about Memorial Day and the ignorance around the holiday, especially from some of our esteemed, and I use that word loosely, elected officials. We're also going to quickly touch on the ATF again and the hearings that the House held on the weaponization of government. We'll get into all of that and more, depending on how quickly I can motor through it. So let's get after it. All right, before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button. Share this video out. The more you like and share, the more people we reach, and the easier it is for us to defeat the algorithm. You can also follow us on socials at Mission Ready Men, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Same handle on all three. And you can also find the audio podcasts on Spreaker and Spotify and pretty much wherever you get your audio podcast from. And if you like the shirt I'm wearing, Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, head over to 7armors.com. It's right here, 7armors.com. And for our audio listeners, it's the number 7armors.com. All right, now that the business is out of the way, let's hit it.
Hit it, sweetheart.
This past weekend, we commemorated Memorial Day. Despite the celebratory nature of the cookouts and the family gatherings and the common practice of wishing people a happy Memorial Day, it is not really a happy occasion. A lot of families are mourning again the loss of their loved ones who served and died in combat. That is not to say that we shouldn't have cookouts or get together with family and friends on Memorial Day. Quite the opposite. We should do those things because those brave men and women fought and died so that you could have the freedom to do those things. And that's what they would want us to do. But we also need to acknowledge the sacrifice that those heroes made so that we could do those things. So along with the cookouts and the beer and the celebrations and things like that, we need to take some time to reflect on the cost of the freedom that we enjoy on Memorial Day and every day, and honor the people who paid that cost. Some people still get Memorial Day and Veterans Day confused. And I am willing to forgive and overlook such ignorance in some cases, even though I know some children who know the difference. But that aside, in some cases, I'm willing to forgive such ignorance. What I cannot forgive, what I absolutely cannot forgive, is elected officials, members of Congress, not knowing the difference. Cut to Ilhan Omar and Cori Bush, two members of the squad who beclown themselves yet again on Twitter. Ilhan Omar tweeted this: "On Memorial Day, we honor the heroic men and women who served our country. We owe them more than our gratitude. They have more than earned access to quality mental health services, job opportunities, housing assistance, and the benefits they were promised." Seriously. I mean, oh my goodness. But not to be outdone, Cori Bush tweeted this: "This Memorial Day and every day, we honor our veterans in St. Louis. We must invest in universal health care, affordable housing, comprehensive mental health services, and educational and economic opportunities for our veterans as we work to build a world free of war and violence." the heroes who we are celebrating and honoring on Memorial Day are dead. Yes, they earned every bit of honor that we can give them, but they can't use universal health care. They can't get affordable housing. I mean, there's no need to go down the list. This is just the height of ignorance. And obviously, they caught tremendous amounts of backlash for these ridiculously ignorant tweets. And they took them down pretty quickly, from what I understand. I never saw the originals. I had to get screenshots. But the internet is forever, and that's why we have screenshots. A sane society, a sane electorate would hold these people accountable. But unless you seek out alternative news sources, unless you listen to podcasts, unless you watch people like me and others on YouTube and Rumble and stuff like that, unless you seek out that alternative media, you are not going to hear about this. I didn't check MSDNC, but I am fairly certain that as of this recording, CNN did not make mention of this at all. At all. And it's probably not in the Washington Compost or the New York Slimes or any of those other outlets either. But thankfully, people like me and others on Rumble and YouTube are here to spread the word that these people are dumber than a box of hair. And they have zero respect. They have absolutely no respect for our men and women in uniform, whether that's our military or our police officers. Cori Bush has made that abundantly clear, and we're not going to get into that right now, but you just look it up. She was one of the original defund the police proponents, and we see how that's working in St. Louis. But these people, they don't care. They're stupid, and they have no respect for our men and women in uniform, as I said, and couldn't be bothered to learn the difference in what these holidays signify. Couldn't be bothered. And their staffers, who, because I'm fairly certain that they don't run their own social media, their staffers couldn't be bothered to learn. You and I, people like us, we honored, we remembered, we reflected on the sacrifices of our brave men and women in uniform. They couldn't care less, and they need to kick rocks. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I have long been a proponent of abolishing the ATF. Most of the three-letter agencies, as far as I'm concerned, need to go. IRS, FBI, FDA, Department of Education, even though the Department of Education is only a two-letter designation. But you get the idea. Recently, Congress held hearings on the weaponization of government in the form of those three-letter agencies, one of which is obviously the ATF. And they grilled ATF Director Dettelbach. I can't remember his first name. Don't really care. But you remember this guy.
Could you, in 15 seconds, would you define an assault weapon for me?
So
If you go past 15 seconds, I'll just interrupt you.
no, so I'll go shorter than that, because I honestly do think if Congress wishes to take that up, I think Congress would have to do the work, but we would be there to provide technical assistance. Unlike you, I'm not a firearms expert to the same extent as you may
Oh,
be.
come on.
And now it's the ATF. Except with the ATF, they don't even claim to be experts. The director said so last week. Last week in a hearing in front of Congress in the Appropriations Committee, he was asked about firearms. He said, I'm not an expert in firearms. Not an expert, but still trying to run Americans' lives. You would think the head of the agency tasked with regulating the entire firearms industry, a constitutionally protected industry, would know something about firearms.
You would think. I mean, you would think, wouldn't you? You would think that a guy who was appointed to be the director of the ATF would know a little something about firearms. I would be shocked if he had even fired a gun prior to becoming the ATF director. I would be genuinely shocked if he had. I remember when I had a chief who was a political appointee, never worn a uniform, never put on a badge, never carried a gun in the line of duty, never served in law enforcement in any capacity whatsoever. And that's what this guy reminds me of. And Jim Jordan, at the end of that clip, had it right in his assessment of Director Dettelbach. And during the rest of that hearing, he was also correct in his assessment of, actually that clip was from a previous hearing, but there was another hearing recently, and he characterized the killing of Brian Malinowski, that operation, as a prime example of the weaponization of government. And that, along with the rule change that the ATF just recently implemented, that effectively makes millions of firearms, law-abiding firearms owners felons. And with respect to the Dettelbach case, with respect to the Malinowski case, I've been familiar with the case. I've known about the case pretty much since it happened. And something came out of these hearings. And I suggest that if you don't want to watch all 2.5, 3 hours or whatever it is, watch some of the clips on Rumble of Dettelbach getting grilled by some of these Congress people. And it's very, very revealing. But there was something that I hadn't been aware of, and I may have heard it at some point and just it didn't register, but I don't think so. But what I was not aware of is that the raid on the Malinowski home on March 19th was to serve a search warrant, not an arrest warrant. Yeah, a search warrant. They could have entered that home at any time. If they really wanted to kick a door in, they could have kicked that door in when no one else was home and conducted their search without the family or an attorney or anything like that, if they wanted to. And to further illustrate that point, a week prior, on March 12th, they were staged at a parking lot near the Malinowski home. And as they were preparing to enter the home, they found that he was not at home. And so they aborted the mission. He was not there in the pre-dawn hours for whatever reason, and they decided not to enter. Fast forward a week later, they do the same thing, go through the same process, confirm he's home, and they descend on the home. They cover up the doorbell camera, kick in the door, and 57 seconds later, Malinowski is shot. And they go into the details of what happened during that time and everything like that. And it's ridiculous. But my point is, As I've said before, they had Malinowski under surveillance. They could have, if they wanted to arrest him, they could have arrested him at any point in the 2 weeks prior to this operation, to his murder. Let me be clear. And they wait. He wasn't home, and they waited. They waited until he was home. They waited until a time when they are most likely to encounter resistance, and that's when they decided to go in. That to me says murder. I mean, premeditated murder, because they had many chances to go into the home without without expecting any violence whatsoever, but they do it at the time when they are most likely to encounter violent resistance. And now Brian Malinowski is no longer with us as a result. If a gang had done that, if a gang wanted to rob somebody's house and they waited until they were home, and we had evidence that they waited until they were home to do it, if we knew that they had ample opportunities to rob that home at any other time when nobody was home, and then we happened to catch them, they would be charged with, well, maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they might have been, who knows what they would be charged with now with these ridiculous DAs. But you get my point. That would be grounds for premeditated murder. Weaponization of government indeed. But there's another thing that I want you to take a look at, and I think this brings the point home that I'm trying to make from Dettelbach's own words. And this is an exchange that he had with Chip Roy. Check this out.
Do you understand why the average citizen sitting out there saying, I've got 400 pages of rulemaking, might not understand what they are allowed to do under the law when the director of the ATF can't look at a member of Congress and tell me yes or no, emphatically, whether or not if I sell a weapon or 2 weapons or 3 weapons or 5, whether or not I need a license? You think that's the way the law ought to be, or the rules?
Respectfully, I believe that the rule that we have promulgated provides way more information and clarity than
In 400 pages?
than just the 1 or 2 sentences that Congress provided. And we were seeing
And you
massive
can't even answer it.
noncompliance.
How can the average American know it?
Did you catch that at the end there? We're seeing massive non-compliance. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they know that people are selling guns, and they believe that based on this new ridiculous rule that they're doing so illegally, which I believe is the rule under which they were investigating Malinowski. And also come to find out during this hearing that they were investigating Malinowski for this before the rule went into effect. But what he said at the end there is very, very telling and very revelatory about their thought process. These people hate you. These people hate the rights that you enjoy, and they will do anything they possibly can, legal or otherwise, to infringe on those rights, up to and including killing you. Anyway, folks, that is all I got for you today. I will try to do better the next time. I told you it was going to be an abbreviated show. But please don't forget to like and subscribe and share these videos, share the audio. Let's continue to spread the good news of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and the message of freedom and liberty. It's a blessing that has been given to us by him. And we want to preserve that blessing and pass it on to the next generation. So remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.